Hey guys, listen up. It's Zack and you're on part 2 of 10 of my Special Forces journey. And so if you're lost, you're not sure what you just found, I'm detailing every phase of the Special Forces journey. Myself, along with one of my counterparts, 27-year Navy SEAL, are diving through our journeys. He's on our other channel. And so what you can expect inside of this episode, which is our second, is that number one, go back to the first one if you're a little messed up and go watch it first. But in this one, we're going to go all the way through basic training. We're going to talk about leadership design. I was one of the younger guys in my basic training class, and so I was put into a position of leadership very early, which was both terrible and incredibly rewarding for myself. After that, we went to Airborne School. We're going to detail Airborne School, and we're going to stop on this episode just at graduation. Next, after that, we're going to go to selection. We're going to go to the prep course. We're going to go to SFPC at Fort Bragg, but we're going through incrementally. And so, like I said, we're going to add a few more journeys from a few other Navy SEALs and a few other guys inside of Operators Association and our Cadre members. Dive into their journeys at the same time. Buckle up. We've got a few more weeks of this, and see you.
Once you start physical fitness after red phase, you don't really do any workups or anything like that. You're not working out, you're not rucking. You're just doing all this big basic stuff. It becomes a little bit more fun because you can get up at 4 a.m. and go do a 12-mile ruck march. And it's like your time to kind of check out because you're walking for 3 hours. They set the pace. The first sergeant sets the pace in mine. It'd be him or the captain. It's a brisk walk. So think 55-pound rucksack, period. Has to be that weight. You got to put boots in there. You got to put your sleeping bag in there. You got to put your IOTV, so your body armor kit with the plates. It starts to get 55 pounds really quickly. You've got 55 pounds of equipment because those plates are heavy. And your helmet's heavy. You put all that stuff in your rucksack immediately. Like it gets to 55 pounds. And they weigh it. It's very like specific. If you're under the weight, you're in trouble. If you're over it, you're good. And then you need a certain amount of water, which they're very serious about. And then you just like start your first ruck march. Like, okay, 12 miles, let's go. And dudes are dying because of a host of reasons. Number one, they maintain a 15-minute a mile pace walking. So it's a consistent, like fast, brisk walk. 15-minute miles walking is like a speed walk, like really, really close to a speed walk. So, and that's the same rate up hills, the same rate down hills. You get a guide on. So if you're fortunate enough, they'll be like, hey, you carry the guide on as well. And you have to carry the flag, which comes with more rules, which is not fun. And guys are starting to fall out. The guys that are falling out, like they just literally can't keep up. They're just getting picked up and just crushed. And then they're putting back in. And you just don't want to be the guys falling out. And the patrol sergeants are constantly telling you to like stay right behind the guy in front of you so there's no gaps. But dudes are like getting blisters on their feet because they'd never rucked before. I had these massive blisters. And it's like your first acceptance that your feet are very important to you in the Army, especially if you're a combat MOS. Your feet are huge, so you have to constantly be working on them. So we do a bunch of ruck marches. You're starting after red phase PT tests more frequently. You guys like dedicated PT. Which is more fun. So you've got like running events, you've got push-up events, sit-up events. They're training you to be good at the PT test, and then also be good at rucking because it's very important in the infantry. So all along this time, you think you got it all planned out because you know when we're eating. So we got to eat at this time, we got to eat this time, we got to eat this time. We're going to go to the DFAC, so we're going to come back, and all during this ruck march, these drills, these physical fitness events, it's the amount of how terrible it is directly dependent on the climate. If it's hot and snowing and raining, well, guess what? You're in the Army and you're still going to go outside and do that in the hot snow, rain, and your clothes are going to get soaked and you're going to complete it and you're going to come back. And you don't get to wear the rain gear that you were issued. That's a joke. It's like literally not for basic training at all. It's just stuck in your locker and you'll never see it. Which is frustrating because you're going to be out in the rain so many days getting just poured on for literally 8 to 9 hours. And you're going to be like, cool, I have a really, really nice rain jacket that's back home in my locker. Can't use it, but that's fine. So I think that's like one of the more skipped over parts of basic training is that everything that you do is outside, number one, and everything you do is climate dependent. So if it's raining, you're still out there doing it. Congratulations, you're in the Army. If it's pouring, you're doing it. If it's snowing, you're for sure doing it. If it's 108 degrees, you're definitely doing it. And they're just giving you more water and more rests. So, all right, let's progress through that. We also start doing shooting drills. That's like right where you started, somewhere around that. Shooting drills are pretty fun. They're very basic, but it's just different. You haven't done that. You do like weapons familiarization. You kind of go through a phase where it's like, just like anything in the military, it's going to be crawl, walk, run. So, hey, here, get down here. Here's an M4. Here's what it looks like. Blah, 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 blah. You know, check it out. I want you to do this. And then I need you to take a test. Everything has a test. Even though it's really simple, we want to make sure that you understand what the M4 is. You can't just put your hands on it for a couple hours and we think you know it. There's like a test where you need to study for it. And that's exactly what you do. And you do that all throughout the course, this Q course as well. Everything's tested. Here's the M4. Here's the manual for it. Here's how it looks. Here's the functions check. Here's how you take the magazine in and out. Here's how you do actions on. Here's how you fire it. Here's how you recycle it. Here's how you test it. All this stuff. And then you have like a very, very, very basic test on it. It's like nobody fails it if you're paying any attention. And because they throw so many hours at each thing you do, you're never going to fail it. And it's just so basic. Literally, I don't think anyone ever failed any of the tests. But it's cool because you go from shooting drills, you go to machine guns, you get to shoot these 50 cal big machine guns. A couple guys will get to shoot AT4s. They're very expensive, so it's not very many. But you will for sure get a 50 cal that you sit in and like you straddle it. You're on the ground, your butt's on the floor, your legs are in a V, straddling this machine gun, and you're like shooting at this old tank or some old cars that are hundreds of meters away. So much fun. It's actually a blast, and it's belt fed that you've practiced, so you know how to feed the belt, and you've got like an assistant gunner to your left, and he's like maintaining everything, and it's super fun. And you're like, wow, this is cool. And then you progress to the grenade part, where the explosives. And you're like, this is fun as well. I literally get a grenade in my hand, I get to throw it, and some people don't like that. I was like, yes, I could throw a grenade. That sounds like fun. It was raining the day that we threw the grenades. You know, you don't realize how much it rains until you're out in the rain every day. And you're like, wow, it's very rainy in Georgia. And somebody's like, well, it's probably rainy everywhere. We just don't have to be out in it. And our clothes have to be consistently soaked so that if we don't get it washed properly during the time allotted, then it's going to be soaked the next day and it's going to start to stink. And then all of our peers are going to be like, you stink. And then we're going to get in trouble because our hygiene's bad. So you get a grenade. The grenade event is actually something we should probably talk about because it's so fun. You get in these long lines. You go through it 100 times. You don't get to just throw this grenade. There's like a very awkward stance that you have to do. You've probably seen it in some videos. Say you're right-handed. You come to throw the grenade. You've got your grenade in your right hand. In your left hand, you literally have to straighten it out and hold it up into like the skyline, like to the sun. So your arm's completely straight, not flexed, and you're pointing like a trajectory of where you're going to throw, but like way up in the sky. And then you have to hold it there. And then you take your right hand that has a grenade and you just come across and throw it right next to your left arm. It's so weird. And I'm just like, give me the thing and let me throw this. Nope, can't do it that way. Got to do it this way. And I'm like, okay. I'm sure you've seen the videos. If not, you can just Google it. It's an awkward position, but in somebody's infinite wisdom, they thought that would assist people to understand when to let go. And if you express concern that you didn't play baseball, or you're not a very good thrower, you practice with like a few dummies, like heavily. Everyone practices, but you practice like one-on-one with a few dummies, just to make sure that you don't throw this thing like right in front of you, because it's a live grenade, and you're in a hole with a drill sergeant. If you drop that grenade, like right there in the hole, it's going to be a bad day. We didn't have any incidents, and you pull the pin, then throw. And it's funny, you can't throw a grenade very far with how they're having you throw it, because you don't get a wind up, you don't get a follow through. Your legs, you don't get to use your legs really at all. Your legs kind of stay stagnant because of this thing, this deliberate way they make you throw it, which is insane to me. So you toss it and you're like, wow, that didn't go very far. But you throw it over a big structure, like some bulletproof glass that you can see the explosion. So you're relatively safe. The only thing that you're not safe of is if you pull the grenade and literally just drop it right there. But because it's a big hole, and the drill sergeants practice this a lot, they just pick you up, throw you out of the hole, right? And then they jump on top of you and roll over, and you're going to be fine, as long as he can get you out of that hole quickly, which you're already, you're wearing your IOTV, so you're wearing your body armor, the huge vest, you're wearing your helmet, you're wearing like all this stuff. You're wearing gloves probably. I can't remember if that was something else. We're not wearing gloves. So no issues for our entire class. And it's kind of cool because you get to go in, this is like on like a hill almost. So you get to go below the hill in a glass window and watch everybody's grenades come over and explode, which is pretty neat. And there's no drill sergeants in there. So it's literally like time for you guys to kind of hang out, not talk too loud, and watch everybody's explosions. It takes a couple hours, so you get like a kind of a relief. That's typically how all the iterations will work. You'll get a chance to wind down. So like during the machine gun, for example, you get to the 50 cal, and if you're not shooting, you're not in line, or you're done, you're kind of sitting in the bleachers, but you get to talk because you're past the red phase. As long as you guys aren't loud, everything will be fine. All right, so you start land navigation. Land navigation is a joke at basic training. You do it with a buddy. The course is so small. I learned nothing in land navigation in basic training. I literally would tell you 0%. And I would hope that you guys, it's different. For you specifically, every class is going to be different just based on the cadre and the people you're with and your teammates, your bunkmates, and your drill sergeants. I didn't learn any land navigation. We went through like a class where they're like, hey, this is a protractor, pull it out. Some people lost theirs. Don't lose any of your stuff. This is a map. This is how it looks. This is what you do. All right, let's go. And I was just like, what? Like, I know this is important. I'm trying to go be a Green Beret. I need to be learning this, and we're just super glossing over it. It's very frustrating for me. Like, I was getting very upset because I wanted to deep dive into this because, as we all know, most people lose at selection because of their land navigation. So I was like, this is an extra win. I've got to pay attention, guys. And they're like, yeah, we'll just do the map, and then you kind of do this, and here's your azimuth, and you kind of count it out and use the string, and then walk. You guys do it with a buddy, and then get 2 points and come back. You're back in like 3 hours. It's a joke. So be cautious of that. Take in as much as you can during the event. It was not raining for us during that, which was an added bonus, but we just didn't get anything done. And people are out in the woods just like walking around having fun. They're like making jokes, and like guys are kind of like running into each other and talking. Nobody's like really focused on doing this. Weapons familiarization is a block that you'll go through with all these weapons that are common, which will be like the 240, which is the machine gun, the 249, which is another lighter machine gun, the M4, which is like the weapon of choice. What else do we do? You'll do like very basic AT4 stuff. You'll do very basic mortars because you're still an infantryman. That's pretty much it in terms of the weapons. You'll do Claymore, very basic because you're an infantryman. All of this stuff you retouch in the Special Forces course in greater detail. If you're an 18 Bravo weapons guy, it's going to be an amazing amount of detail. But everybody touches it pretty heavy. So as you progress through about 3/4 of the way, you start to notice that you're getting more and more freedoms. And they don't even say it. They just start letting you have more freedoms. All of a sudden, there's church on Sunday if you want to go to church. And if you guys want to go to the chow hall, well, you can march yourselves. And you can kind of like self-regulate because you've got a guy that's in charge of you. You got like what's called a PG, a platoon guard, and he runs the marching. He's like, takes the drill sergeant's spot. During the ruck marches, he's the one telling everybody to get it together and like speed up, close the gaps. He's in charge now. He's the one kind of running everything. And that guy typically will evolve and it'll change in most drill sergeant classes. In ours, it didn't. Luckily, I was the guy in charge the entire time, and I hated it. I was fired once for a total of like an hour and a half because I couldn't do an event correctly. I was just butchering it. I will talk about that here in a minute. But I was in charge of our platoon the entire time. That first night that I was telling you about where we got in the classroom setting, we sat down, and we met our drill sergeant. He was like, yeah, look through all your stuff. Who's the guy with the master's degree? Because I went to graduate school directly after college before I joined. And I was like, sweet. And I was like, yeah, it's me. Okay, Zach, you're in charge. You're the PG. Take all your direction from Zach. Zach, you're like my one-on-one guy. And that's like a very common system all through the Army and really in leadership. If you've got a group of 20 guys that you specifically are in charge of managing, and you're like separate from them, you need a leader internally. You'll see that at ROTC programs. You'll see that everywhere you go in the military. You'll see that in some organizations as well. Basically, I need a guy who I can go to and tell you what needs to be done, and then you go get everybody to do it. And you deal with like if they have issues or like helping them get it together, things like that. The cadre don't have time for that. when it's outside of red phase and they don't have a bunch of people helping. So they get a leader to do it. And it's typically like you're the leader for a little bit. You mess something up, which you're always going to do. And they're like, okay, this guy. And then they make a point to like fire you in front of everyone and tell you suck and you didn't do a great job. And now it's your turn. Show me what you've got. It's kind of a dog and pony show, to be honest with you. I saw a lot with the other platoons, and I have a ton of friends that were like revolved in. Sometimes like a couple guys will be like, you're the leader of this right now. And you do like, take like 2 steps. Okay, you're fired. What? So it's just all of this. You got to understand all of this is a very mental game. All right. So you get the church freedoms. You've been writing a lot. You get some payphone freedoms. So you get like a phone card where you can call home. All of this after red phase, you get like dedicated time blocks to call home. Your fire guard responsibilities start to limit at the end. You don't have to be in your full gear. You can be in PTs now. The drill sergeants start to be a little bit more cool with you. There's not a deliberate pivot from basic training to OSUT to like the infantry portion, because other MOSs, you have to go to like an Army basic training, right, where they teach you all the Army stuff, and then you probably go somewhere else, like another part of the country, for your like AIT school, where you learn your job. But for the infantry, it's all combined, and that's why it's called OSUT. It's the Army basic training combined with infantryman tactics, and it's all in one spot. It's all together. What makes it honestly very easier for us. It's actually easier for us, so we don't have to travel across the nation and like do all this other stuff. It's all one combined package. All right, so at the very end of this, you're starting to get towards the end of basic training. You've got more freedom. Everything's looking great. They give you what's called a family day, and your family and friends can come up and see you. This isn't graduation. You haven't graduated yet. This is at the end of the basic training portion. So that's like the only deliberate thing that you see when you pivot from basic training to OSUT is this family day. Your family can come and say, hey, how's everything going? Blah, 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 blah. Great to see you. You kind of march out into a field. There's like the captain says some stuff on a microphone. You salute. You probably sing the Army song, if I'm thinking correctly. I've done a lot of graduations. Which you sing the Army song so much. You have to learn all the Army vows, all the Army values, code of conducts, like all these Army things, your chain of command. You got to know like all this stuff, and it's testable. So you sing the Army song a lot, and it actually becomes really fun. Singing the Army song becomes fun. And you get chants that you'll sing when you get to the chow hall, and you get like platoon-specific chants. You get a T-shirt. You guys build your own platoon T-shirt that you get to keep. I don't know where mine's at. And then family day comes, and your family gets to come, and they show up. And for me, I was like, hey, mom and dad, girlfriend, you guys want to come? You're more than welcome to. You don't really have to. We're not graduating. I haven't been gone that long. And their like immediate response was, hell yes, we'll be there. Because they're just so proud of you. If they have the ability to come, they want to show up. Because now, not only have you just been talking about joining the Army for a number of years, you're gone and like immediately apparent that you're the adult and you have made your own decisions and you're serving our country because you've been writing and you've been telling them that you've been doing all these crazy things with machine guns and grenades, and like you're actually really busy, and it kind of sucks at first because it was miserable, and maybe you're like, what was I thinking? I blah, 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 I hate it, miss you guys. But then they see you in this uniform. They haven't seen you in the uniform in really ever yet, period, never. They haven't seen pictures. They've gotten letters from you. That's about it. They show up, you've lost weight, you look thinner, you're probably tan because you've been outside, you're in this hat, you're on a field, you've got like this amazing U.S. Army uniform, you're going to do some maneuvers in the field, you're going to salute, everything's going to look crisp, you're going to march by everybody, you're going to sing the Army song. It's a very patriotic situation, and people love it. It's so much fun. You're going to meet some of your friends' families and all that stuff. And then I think you get like a couple hours to hang out with them, and that's it. You're back to basic training. You're back to the infantry portion of the basic training block. You don't get the night with them. You don't get anything like that. At least I didn't. It pivots from classes. It just depends. And it's back to business like literally the next day. But it's a good break. My family were like a little frustrated because they wanted to hang out with me, and that just wasn't in the books. But it is what it is. So at the end of the entire thing, you have to do what's called an FTX. And you get very familiar with this term because it's used all over the military. Field training exercise, and you've got to perform all these tasks that they taught you about. The infantry tasks, shooting your M4. You've gone to the ranges, you've shot a bunch, you've had to qualify. You're using these like very basic tasks, like tips of shooting that they taught you. You have to lay in the prone with a certain way with your feet. You got to put the rifle in a certain area of your shoulder. Your breath has to be correct. The trigger needs to be squeezed like this. You got to sight in your sight like this. Everything's got to be done correctly. And then you go to the FTX where they, you put blanks on, and you put like with this thing at the end of the M4 and blank rounds, so that when you shoot, it makes the same noise, but nothing comes out. And it's very clear that you have this thing on the end because it's bright yellow. It's like a baffle, essentially. I think they're called BFAs. I kind of forget what they're called. I haven't used them in a long time. We use something different in group, but you use these in basic training. You twist it on the end of your rifle, and you just shoot these rounds that are black, and they're super loud. They're just as loud, if not louder, than regular rounds, but nothing comes out, obviously. And then the weapon fires the exact same. It revolves through your magazine. So you go to do an FTX with this. So you've got to come in as a team, or excuse me, as a squad or as a platoon, and you've got some mission that they're like, hey, you got to dig in. The enemy's coming. You guys set up a patrol base, which is what I butchered. So setting up a patrol base is like not really a hard thing if you've done it maybe 3 or 4 times. If you've never done it and you just looked at it on a book and talked through it, it gets very cumbersome in the middle of the night with these ridiculous layers of equipment on. So basically you want a triangle patrol base that everybody can lay in the prone, think like full invasion, and everybody's like facing out. And at each end of the triangle, at the points, you've got the machine guns and what's called an apex, and they can shoot back down the lines. So there's some overall like understanding of geometry that you have to have in order to do this correctly. And you have to be able to like kind of look at your men and be like, are they in a straight line? Is that a point? Is that making an actual triangle? Is everybody facing out? Is the machine gun at the end of the triangle? And is the machine gun facing to where it would like shoot the enemy and not us? And I completely blew it. And it's just because I didn't know what I was doing, and I was trying to get all my guys to like get into a triangle. And I was like, okay, guys, and it's dark. It's in the middle of the night. It's like 2 a.m. And they're exhausted. I'm exhausted, but I'm kind of stressed out. I'm like, okay, follow me. Okay, right here. This is the corner, one corner of the triangle. Now turn left and go that way. And I like walk down. I was like, you guys all stay right here. And I walked down to the other one. I was like, okay, now this is the second point of this triangle. Take a right here and go down there. And I took a right here. And I was like, okay, you guys stay right here. And I went to the third. I thought it was very clear. Probably made 0 sense to anybody. I got to the third like point of this triangle, and I was like, okay, you guys come to me. Stop. And then I looked back, and I was assuming that like the guys at the back of the line stopped at these points, but they didn't, and I couldn't see that far. And everybody just like followed me around in a big triangle. So the drill sergeant is watching this complete disaster, and to be frank, a shit show. And I'm like, he didn't stop me. He's just watching. I'm like, great, this didn't work. Let's try it again. And I kind of explained it a little bit more. Everybody's wearing their rucksacks. We've been walking for a while. The ground's got like all these holes in it. Everybody's exhausted. They're like drinking water. People want to take a knee. I mean, you're done. You're tired. And that's like one of the leadership challenges. Like, okay, we're going to try this again. If you're the last person and I pass it down, this is where they need to stop. Period. This is it. So I do that, and we do it again, and it gets better, but it's still not close at all to like a triangle. It's not deliberate. It's not looking good. I'm not getting guys in the prone. It's taking way too long. So the drill sergeant stops me and fires me immediately, hires somebody else. I'm like, thank God. Awesome. Figure it out. I'll do exactly what you tell me to do, dude. I promise. And I'll get everybody around to make sense. Like, I will help you. This is amazing. And he tries it for about like an hour. Literally, this is taking forever. And he blows it, and they're like, okay, Zach, you're back in. I'm like, oh my gosh, pick somebody else. So it ends up being the drill sergeant makes us this patrol base because I can't do it effectively. I'm just not, I don't have the skills to do it. The guys aren't listening. They're not motivated enough. It's just not happening. I'm not providing enough leadership for them to get motivated and listen effectively. So we finally get in this triangle. We sit down in this patrol base. We all face out. And he's like, okay, dig in. And we'd already done this before. It's like the terrible one, kind of like toe the line. Dig in is a term you don't want to hear. So you pull out your E-tool, which is your little shovel that the Army gave you that's heavy, and you start to dig your positions like you're in Normandy. And they have to be deep. It's a coffin that you have to dig, and it takes hours. So you and your partner, it's your little triangle there, one person digs and one person pulls security. And that's what you do for like the next 5 hours every time you are told to dig in. Because you're going to take, somebody's going to attack you, or you're going to take indirect fire. There's going to be mortars being shot at you. You need the hole, just like the guys in World War II did. Makes sense. Doesn't make sense in the winter when the ground's really hard and it takes forever. And some guys get into it more than others and make these great ones. Some guys that kind of half-ass it. It just depends on what you want to do, and whether you think that you're going to get lucky and not get called out. So they attack you, you attack back. Guys are falling asleep on the line, not pulling security. It's a mess. You typically just fail miserably at this FTX because guys are falling asleep. People aren't paying attention. It's the middle of the night. The cadre are like finding ways to sneak up on you. Literally, our cadre, this is like no joke. Literally, our cadre members attacked us, and they came in with Sharpies, and they put X's on the people's foreheads that were asleep. Not one person shot at them in my entire like patrol base. I'm asleep, literally because it's my time to sleep. You know, half the people are sleeping at one point. And I get this, I get an X on my forehead, dead, and then the cadre member takes somebody's weapon out of them that's asleep, puts it next to his head, literally not like the barrel, but the weapon part, and like facing off into the woods, pulls the trigger so loud, wakes him up, probably messed up his ears. I mean, it's like crazy loud. And it's like, okay, if you have an X on your head, you're dead. And it's literally everyone. Everyone got a Sharpie marker on their forehead because they were so asleep that they weren't paying attention, they weren't effective. And we were like, wow, this is like, we all just died. Not just like a few of us or half of us, it's everyone. Everyone has an X or a mark of a Sharpie on their forehead and didn't wake up. That's how tired every single person was, and how not aware of the situation that every single person was. Something like that would never happen in SUT during the Q course. Everyone is sharp and focused, but you're just not like there yet. You're not understanding the grasp of like what's going on because you're still at basic training. So that was pretty interesting. You've got the FTX. That's really the end. I think the other thing that is important to discuss, when you do any of these events like this or you go shooting, you have to do weapons maintenance, which is a monster. In general, in the Army, even more specific in basic training, it's like a 24-hour nonstop cleaning. So instead of you do fire guard also at night, but you also have like 4 guys downstairs cleaning the weapons, and you've all got to clean your individual weapons. You have to get it checked with the drill sergeant. I keep calling them cadre, but it's the drill sergeant. They're not cadre at this point. They're all drill sergeants. So you have to get it checked with him. He's like, yeah, it looks pretty good. This looks pretty good. This looks pretty good. This is terrible. And he tells you exactly like how to fix it, and you fix it. And if you keep bringing it back to him not fixed, then he crushes you. And then at the end of it, he's like, okay, all of these need to go through like this machine that like gets them wet and cleans it very, very detailed overnight. So 4 guys for an hour are downstairs taking each of the weapons and putting them through this solvent, this cleaner, and like making sure they're actually really, really, really cleaned. And this happens like all the time. So now you've gone from having 2 guys awake in the middle of the night to 6 guys awake in the middle of the night, and you're not batting with a lot of people regardless. So every night you're up for at least an hour and a half on a like smaller sleeping scale regardless. And sometimes once a month, maybe once every 3 weeks, you actually have to wake up twice in a night because there's too many things going on overnight. So that's really not fun at all, to be honest with you. All right, and then you graduate, and you're finally done with all of that. You've passed all the stuff, which you're going to pass. You know, you've done well. Everything's great. You end up at graduation. Your family either comes, they don't come. The Army does a really good job at graduation. We do like a march onto a field, and we do a mock. We dress our guys up in infantry stuff, and they come in and do some tactics with those weapons again that are wearing like have blanks, and it's pretty cool. And they've got some explosives going on, and then the band's like playing music overhead. The captain comes on and like gives a speech about the new infantrymen and blah 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 blah, and then you get to go through the infantryman museum, which is right there at Fort Benning because that's the home of the infantry. And you get your blue cord, and you're in your dress uniforms again. You were in them during family day as well, and you get the like some real like stuff on your uniform. It's like a big deal. You get this blue cord, which is iconic in the United States Army. Now you're an infantryman, and you've actually done something. You've like another small victory where you can kind of move forward, and it's exciting. Your family loves it. Everybody's excited for you. You're really proud of it. Guys are like taking selfies, sending pictures to each other. You get your phones. Like, it's a lot of fun. And after that, you kind of, if you're on an 18 X-ray trajectory or a RASP, or you just have an airborne contract for 11 Bravo, you go to Airborne School. And Airborne School is right there. It's like literally a couple blocks away. And it's so awesome to be in Airborne School when you're coming out of basic training, because you get freedom immediately. You're back to having freedom. It's Monday through Friday. What you want to do on the weekends is what you want to do on the weekends for us. Now, it's changed, and you have to put in passes, and your weekends are a little restricted now. But you can still kind of do what you want. I had a car at that point, so I had my own vehicle. On the weekends, we would go to Auburn, and it was a good time to be in Auburn. We would just get a bunch of friends, we'd go get a hotel for 1 or 2 nights, stay for the weekend, enjoy ourselves, come back refreshed and ready to go. 3 weeks in Airborne School. First week, it's the same as everything, crawl, walk, run, right? The first week is really you're in harnesses. They're telling you basic principles of airborne. They're going over like the jump commands. It's like things like that. You've got guys from every branch there. So for my class, we had dudes that were in the Naval Academy. They were cadets that are like top of their class. So they sent them to Airborne School. We had guys from the Marines. We had some recon dudes who were going through the recon pipeline. We had a few guys from the Navy, but just the cadets were the only people from the Navy. The Marine guys were the recon dudes. And then you'll have guys in the Army that are 06s, that are 40 years old, that are all these different jobs, that are like E9s, sergeant majors, like really high up in the Army, but they had never been to Airborne School. And you kind of listen to them talk, and they're just so excited to be there. And it's weird because you just finished basic training. You're like really nobody in the Army. And these people have been in the Army, some of them 20 plus years, and they just haven't been able to make it to Airborne School. And you kind of think about it, and you're like, wow, I like really did this correctly, because I'm immediately going to Airborne School, which makes you a more elite soldier, period, in the Army, like without a doubt. There's only a small fraction of people that are airborne qualified in the Army. So when you see like all these big deal people from all these other jobs, you think to yourself, like, I'm really glad I got this airborne contract, and I'm moving forward. Regardless of what happens, if I finish Airborne School, I'm already like a step ahead, way ahead. So it's fun, and you kind of get to meet people and talk to people and see their situations. So first week, you're all in harnesses. You're like doing these little jump drills, things like that. It's very basic. You're learning how to work the parachute, how it's going to look, what the commands are, what to do in the air if certain scenarios are present. Introductory, all lessons learned. Week 2 is the tower week. You start to slide down these like apparatuses and kind of work up a fake parachute. You could possibly go into this big tower and they static line parachute opens up and you fall. We didn't do that, but it's a very iconic piece of equipment out there in the drop zone at Benning. And you just do the same thing. You do like all these zip lines that are like pretend for you to be in a harness, so you can kind of feel what it's like to be in this harness. And then once you do that, you're kind of progressing rather quickly. And the third week is jump week. And they jam pack as many jumps as they can into the smallest amount of time as possible. It's really the first opportunity that you're going to have to be in a parachute harness for an extended period of time, which is very quickly miserable. You get on this harness that's not fun, and you have to sit for hours waiting on the airplane to refuel or us to get it together. We have to be ready way before the plane gets there, because when the plane gets there, it's like time to go. So you will be in a parachute harness forever during Airborne School. Hours and hours and hours. And sometimes during the course and sometimes in your career as well. I mean, it just happens. It's just a part of being an airborne. You'll see these pictures of these guys in their suits with their parachute and their harness, because you have to be in that thing and ready to go at all times. At this point, guys are dropping out pretty regularly. If you're with a bunch of 18 X-rays, they've dropped at reception, they've dropped at basic training, they've dropped at hold, and they're starting to drop out in Airborne School. They're either injured, or they just don't like it, or they're like terrified at their core of heights. It's okay to be scared of heights, but like incapacitated fear is not going to work for you. And it's very, very clear that if you go up on jump week, and it's your turn to jump out of the airplane, you're kind of running out, and you stop, and you're a jump refusal, they will UCMJ take action against you for disregarding a lawful order. Like, they tell you that, like, hey, if you get up there and you stop and you don't jump, we'll prosecute you for that. Because if the person behind you trips and falls, and like, because you stopped and you're kind of trotting out the door, you don't walk out, especially in Airborne School. And if you just abruptly stop and lose your mind, that person trips, hits you, pushes you out, like the next person behind you's line gets tangled with yours because you guys go out together. There's a real possibility for you to mess up something bad if you stop. So you can't stop. And we didn't have anybody stop. We had some guys refuse, like on the ground or in the air, but nobody that walked up to the door and stopped, because it's so in your face that you have a potential to really hurt people, and we will prosecute you if you do that, period. Like, done. They also prosecute guys for quitting in the air as well, but not to the same degree. And to be frank, I don't even know if they do. That's just what they say. I didn't talk to anybody because nobody does it. But don't do it. So people are getting injured during airborne school. You're actually running quite a bit. It's like a slow trot, like 5 miles at a time. You do like airborne chants, which are super fun. They're like a little bit more cooler than the basic training chants. The airborne cadre are a little bit cooler people than the basic training. They don't treat you as terrible. They're wearing like black t-shirts and pants at the bottom with like cool hats. Not this basic training, huge green round circle thing. They're not like talking down to you. So the guys are cooler. You can have a little bit more of a relationship with them. But people are starting to get hurt. And whether or not it's just from running, or it's just from like something that happened in basic training, or it's the harness, or like they fell weird. I didn't have anybody break any bones from the jump itself, but we had some guys getting injured for sure. It's nice because this is the time period where you can actually hit the gym. This will be the first time you can actually hit the gym, and you have your own schedule. You can work out. You can start to like really focus on your fitness again for the first time in a long time. And you work out how you want. You want to go for a run? After everything's done, well, you go for a run. If you want to go to the gym, well, you guys walk over to the gym or take a car. It's really close. And you see each other all at the gym kind of crushing these workouts and doing these things collectively. It's really nice. It's a good time to finally get some space where you can begin to be an adult and kind of start your own routine again, because you know typically that your workouts are going to be better than what you were doing in basic training. And then graduation comes and you've jumped out of planes, I would say around 15 times. You've got about 15 jumps in-ish. Depends on the weather, depends on timing, things like that. You've got an airborne certificate. You get stamped with all that, so you do all the processing for that. You can have family attend. I had my girlfriend attend. She came. She put my wings on me. They make a big deal about it. It's really cool. So you're not in your dress uniform. You take some pictures next to this airborne stuff, and you get some airborne history, which is really, really impactful because it was such a big part of our culture in World War II and other times. So it's really neat, and there's a lot of history involved, and you're really proud. You get pictures. They take pictures of you coming off the runway and like your first jump, and typically people are like smiling, which you've never taken a picture smiling in basic training, and it's fun. I've actually got it framed in my basement in my house. That like first picture of my first ever jump with my roster number on my chest and a big smile and a thumbs up, my helmet and parachute. My reserve is like on my stomach there. So it's fun. It's like something that you can actually be proud of, and you're like super amped up when you finish it. At least I was. And you've got a team of dudes who are 18 X-rays that you guys have known each other now for quite a while. And maybe some new guys have came in at Airborne that like got hurt and they had to back up, or they couldn't come in time, or they are already 11 Bravo and they didn't have to go to basic training, or they were in a different platoon and you never met them, but now you're meeting them in Airborne School. So you've got some friends that like collectively you guys are about to make this trek to North Carolina to start one of the most difficult military training pipelines ever in existence. And you're so amped up and you're so fired up about it. I remember I was looking around and I was like, I cannot get to North Carolina fast enough. I have my own car. I'm driving myself. You can also take the bus, which they prefer. And you can like take a couple days to do it. But I went straight there. I was so excited. And that's really when you start to finish Airborne School, there's like Special Forces Cadre there, and they come tell you, they get you guys all together, and they're like, hey, game time, boys. Like, you finished basic training, you finished Airborne School. You've seen how many people now have quit, have fell out. You know, whether it's personal situation, medical situation, they quit situation, they failed something situation. There's so many reasons that people don't make it through this pipeline. I would say 30% don't even get to where we're at right now after Airborne School. So you're really excited. Everything's moving in a great direction, and you've got to start this phase 2 of the entire thing, and that starts with the prep course. And so that'll be our next episode. Next week, I'll do another 1-hour deep dive in starting with the day you show up in North Carolina and kind of progressing through. So you guys have a good one. If you like this podcast, if you're typically into this thing, I want to make sure that you are on our Discord channel, that you're active on the Instagram, that you're following Operators Association. If you have any questions about any of that, you can DM the Operators Association Instagram page. You can DM me on Instagram at ZackHughes1 or the Discord channel. Give me a shout on the Discord channel. We'll kind of make some things happen. Great to have you guys, and enjoy your week.